Hey guys, I wanted to share some stuff with you that you may not know about Shadows of Evil. There's a few things I want to talk to you guys about, but the first one is going to be about the Cthulhu Mythos. There's a lot of creatures and monsters in Shadows of Evil, and when I first played the map, I was like, this stuff is random as hell, but it's actually not. Most of these monsters do have a place in Cthulhu Mythos, and I'll show you guys that. This all started with this guy here. This is H.P. Lovecraft. He was born August 20th, 1890, and he is the father of so many horror tropes that we take advantage of today, like cosmic alien gods, secret cults, and not to mention how popular the Cthulhu Mythos has become in recent years. Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos is a widely complicated thing full of archaic, barely pronounceable names and long histories that go even before time. In his stories, there are a lot of cosmic entities, but the most important ones are three cosmic gods. The first one is called Azathoth, and this is basically a blind idiot god that is responsible for all creation and destruction, and it's just an unaware, chaotic malignance. The next god is called Lil'Arnie, and this is the most talented and intelligent of all the outer gods. Unlike the other gods, he is frequently on the earth and in human form. He gathers followers and participates in the worship of various cults. If you look at some of the images that have been drawn by artists, by the way he was depicted in the books, he does look a lot like the Shadow Man does after he transforms into his normal state. And based on his description and what we know about the Shadow Man and Shadows of Evil, it's highly likely that this is the god that they're trying to represent here. The third and final cosmic god is the interdimensional keeper of eternity called Yog-Sothoth. Yog-Sothoth visually manifests as a mass of glowing orbs with like eyes and tendrils in some versions, and in other versions it's just simply a bunch of orbs. Yog-Sothoth is described as being like the all-knowing one, and that he can see all of space and time all at once, and that there are no secrets hidden from Yog-Sothoth. I spoke to a person that is really familiar with the Cthulhu Mythos, and he looked at all the creatures inside Shadows of Evil, and he said basically that they look like the spawn of Yog-Sothoth, so the creatures with characteristics similar to this monster. He also said they may or may not be his offspring, and like much of the Cthulhu Mythos, it's intended to be beyond human understanding. Another big part of the Cthulhu Mythos is the Necronomicon. It holds like summoning spells, rituals, and secrets about a lot of these monsters. This guy that I know that's been giving me some information about Cthulhu is actually an artist that draws a lot of these monsters that are depicted inside the books. The majority of his drawings are based off of the spawns of Yog-Sothoth. I was able to match up most of the creatures and monsters inside Shadows of Evil with a lot of his drawings, and he did agree with me that the creatures inside Shadows of Evil are all definitely Cthulhu Mythos inspired. This first one here is the giant squid in the sky, and I've seen a lot of other YouTubers think that this thing could be Azathoth. I did find a drawing inside of his collection that looks a lot like this creature in the sky, but he only labels it as a creature from the beyond. And what he means by that is that if there's a story that involves like dimensional portals, then that's what these characters are classified as. Another creature that matched up with his drawings is the gateworm. Again, this one is classified as things from the outside and also could be a spawn of Yog-Sothoth. I thought this next one was really cool. This is the actual beast, the beast mode that we go into, and this thing is called the Devourer from the Beyond. There's a few monsters in the mythos that actually devour and eat things, and this thing here is definitely classified as that. You can see with a big mouth, and then if you ever see the animation inside the game, this thing actually eats zombies, so yeah, definitely a devourer. This next one was probably the most interesting because how random it is. It's such a strange monster to have inside of a zombies game. First thing I want to show you is this translation page that Treyarch had showed us inside of the recent Awakening DLC trailer. All the creatures are depicted here like the zombies and the parasites, the margwa, but where are the meatballs? There is something there called an elemental, and I never really knew what that meant. Then when digging around to look at some of the stories in the Cthulhu Mythos, it looks like this matches up with the meatballs. It seems like the meatballs are based on this god called Cthulhu. Cthulhu is described as a fire elemental spirit and like a spherical ball, and definitely seemed to describe the meatballs. I was glad to see this because I thought the meatballs were so strange, and now knowing that Treyarch is actually taking this from Cthulhu Now I'm like, okay, I can accept this now. This next one is about the Lil'Arnie, and I was really surprised to see this information. He is not a new thing and has been showing up in games since the 80s. He's definitely depicted differently based on, who the artist is and, what story he's from. But the overall look of him basically stays the same. What Lil'Arnie is a dark young or like offspring of this creature called Shub-Niggurath. You see lots of mentions of this in the Cthulhu RPG game and also in Quake. There's a boss fight in Quake where you actually fight a Shub-Niggurath. You can see the structure of it looks pretty identical. It's got the 4 feet and then the body looks kind of like a large trunk, and then it's got the waving tentacles in the air. The only thing really different about the Lil'Arnie versus the dark young of Shub-Niggurath is that Shub is usually depicted with a lot of mouths around the body, but on Lil'Arnie he's got a lot of eyeballs. Next are the Parasites, and the Parasites seem to be representing what's called the Migo. They're described as fungi from the planet Yugoth, and in some of the stories it talks about how these things are like helping out Nyarlathotep. Which, if this is what the Shadow Man actually is, then yeah, this would start to make some sense. If you've ever noticed on the front of the mystery box, there's like some little cocoons that have the parasite larva inside of it, and this definitely matches up very well with the way some of the Migo are depicted. This next one I was really glad to have some explanation for, because these statues around Shadows of Evil are again very random. These statues seem to match up really well with a creature called Ron Tagoth. Ron comes from the same Yugoth planet like the Parasites or the Migos. He comes to Earth and he feeds off of sacrifices and worship made by the primitive natives, but eventually they forget about him and he enters a state of hibernation and turns into a statue. This definitely matches up with these things being a statue and also feeding them souls, like sacrificing zombies and feeding them to them. Somewhere else it says that if you feed him like sacrifices, he starts to come alive again, and you can see in the statues that they are frozen, and as soon as you put an egg in to start feeding zombie souls, you can see the tentacles start moving around like he's coming alive. And that definitely matches up with the stories about this thing from Cthulhu Mythos. This next drawing is of Yog-Sothoth, and this looks a lot like the Wonder Weapon. Now I know that this artist had told me that a lot of the creatures could be spawns of Yog-Sothoth, and the Wonder Weapon is definitely labeled as an interdimensional gun, and so is Yog-Sothoth. He is labeled as interdimensional. I wouldn't say that the Wonder Weapon is Yog himself, but I would definitely say that this thing is a spawn of him. The last one I was hoping to find was a creature that I could compare the Margwa to. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything, but I did find a lot of pictures that looked a lot like his head, like very similar, where it's just the teeth in the mouth and like no eyes. I do want to give a huge shout out to Ragdoll for helping me out with some of this information. And if there are any like Cthulhu super nerds out there, let me know if I've messed up any of this information or if you have further insight to some of this. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was one of the more enjoyable videos for me to make. I love this kind of information, like where things come from. Stay tuned for the clip of the day, and we'll see you guys next video.